Let me tell you something about a man that most women don't understand. A man can fake confidence, he can fake strength, he can fake not caring, but when a woman becomes his weakness, oh, he cannot fake that. See, every man has that one woman who gets past all the walls, all the pride, all the ego, and touches something deep inside him. And once that happens, he may try to hide it, but his actions will expose him every single time. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Harvey, let me tell you something that a lot of women don't fully realize about men. When a man is truly emotionally connected to you, you stay on his mind in ways he cannot control. I don't care how busy he is. I don't care how focused he looks. I don't care how hard he tries to play it cool. If you have touched his heart deeply, his mind will keep traveling back to you over and over again. That's one of the clearest signs you become his biggest weakness. Now, see, men are different from women in the way they process emotions. Most men don't sit around talking about feelings all day. Most men distract themselves with work, hobbies, sports, business, and responsibilities. A man can fill his schedule with activity because that's how he avoids emotional pressure. But when a woman truly matters to him, none of those distractions fully work anymore. Somehow, she still slips into his thoughts. He could be in the middle of an important meeting and suddenly something reminds him of your smile. He could hear a certain song while driving and instantly think about the last moment you shared together. He could walk past a restaurant and remember the way you laughed during dinner. See, emotional connection leaves fingerprints on a man's memory. And when he can't stop thinking about you naturally, without forcing it, that means you have become emotionally significant to him. A lot of women think a man only thinks about them when he texts constantly or calls every hour. No, that's not always true. Some men are quiet thinkers. Some men process emotions internally. Just because he isn't always expressing it doesn't mean you're not on his mind. Men often hide emotional attachment because they fear vulnerability. They fear looking weak. They fear rejection. But trust me, if you're important to him, his mind keeps circling back to you whether he admits it or not. See, a man doesn't mentally obsess over every woman. In the meeting, physical attraction alone is never enough. Beauty might capture his attention for a moment, but emotional connection captures his soul. The woman who becomes unforgettable is the woman who makes him feel understood. The woman who gives him peace when life feels stressful. The woman who inspires him to become a better version of himself. That's the woman he thinks about before he goes to sleep at night. You ever notice how a man suddenly checks his phone hoping your name pops up? That's emotional attachment. You ever notice how he randomly sends you something that reminded him of you? That's emotional attachment. You ever notice how he remembers little details you told him weeks ago? Oh yeah, that's because when a man cares deeply, his mind pays attention differently. And ladies, let me tell you something powerful. When a man constantly thinks about you, it changes the way he behaves. He becomes more emotionally invested. He starts planning around you mentally. He wonders how your day is going. He wonders if you're happy. He wonders who's around you. And if another man enters the picture, trust me, that thought starts disturbing his peace. Now, some men try to fight the ease emotions. Oh, yes, they do. A man will sometimes tell himself, I'm not going to get too attached. He'll try to act distant. He'll try to appear unaffected. But emotions don't always listen to logic. That's why even the toughest man can suddenly become soft when the right woman enters their life. A woman becomes a man's weakness when she creates emotional impact. And emotional impact comes from more than looks. It comes from energy. It comes from confidence. It comes from the way you make him feel when he's around you. Some women walk into a man's life and bring drama, stress, confusion, and pressure. But the woman who becomes unforgettable is usually the one who brings peace, comfort, inspiration, and emotional safety. See, peace is powerful to a man. A peaceful woman becomes addicted because life already gives men enough battles. So when he finds somebody who makes him feel calm instead of drained, he starts craving her presence naturally. That's why even when he's away from you physically, mentally, he still returns to you over and over again. And let me tell you another truth. When a man constantly thinks about you, he starts noticing your absence more deeply. If you suddenly become quiet, he feels the difference. If your energy changes, he notices immediately.
Why?
Because emotionally attached people become sensitive to changes in connection. Your silence suddenly feels louder than your words. That's why some men panic when a woman stops chasing them. At first, they think they have all the control. They think you'll always be there. But once your attention disappears, reality hits them emotionally. Now their mind starts racing. Why hasn't she called? Is she talking to somebody else? Did I lose her? And ladies, that emotional shift reveals how much space you occupied in his heart all along. You don't have to force a man to think about you when the connection is real. Real connection naturally stays in a person's mind. That's why authenticity matters. A woman who is comfortable with herself leaves a stronger emotional impression than a woman pretending to be somebody else. Confidence is memorable. Peace is memorable. Genuine energy is memorable. And see, men remember how you make them feel. Long after conversations fade, long after moments pass, feelings remain. If being around you makes them feel respected, appreciated, motivated, desired, emotionally safe, your memory becomes difficult to erase. That emotional experience keeps replaying inside him. Sometimes a man may even pull away because his feelings scare him. Oh yes. Some men distance themselves when emotions become too intense because they don't know how to handle vulnerability. But even then, they still think about the woman constantly. In fact, distance often increases emotional obsession because absence creates reflection. A man may try to focus on work. He may try to distract himself. He may surround himself with friends. But if you truly touched his heart, your presence keeps echoing in his thoughts. That's why he eventually circles back around. That's why he checks on you unexpectedly. That's why he struggles to fully let go. Because when a woman becomes a man's emotional weakness, she stops being just another person in his life. She becomes part of his daily thoughts, part of his emotional world, and part of the future he secretly imagines in his mind. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Harvey, let me tell you something that many women overlook when it comes to men. A man can ignore your words for a moment, but when your silence starts affecting him, emotionally, that's when you know you become important to him. See, words are easy to hear. People talk every day. But silence is powerful. Silence forces people to feel. And when a man truly cares about you, his silence can shake him in ways he never expected. Now understand this carefully. A man who is emotionally disconnected can go days, weeks, sometimes even months without checking on a woman because emotionally he isn't attached. But when a man is deeply invested in you, your absence creates emotional pressure inside him. The moment you become quiet, he notices the difference immediately. He notices when the good morning texts stop. He notices when your energy changes. He notices when you stop asking about his day. And trust me, when a man loves your presence, your silence becomes loud. See, many women think they have to constantly explain their value to a man. They think they have to argue, beg, convince, or chase attention. One of the strongest things a woman can do is quietly pull her energy back. Because when you stop forcing your presence on somebody, you give them the opportunity to feel your absence naturally. And ladies, let me tell you something about human nature. People often don't fully appreciate something until they feel the possibility of losing it. That's true in relationships too. Sometimes a man gets comfortable because he assumes you'll always be there no matter what he does. He becomes lazy emotionally. He stops appreciating the little things you bring into his life. But the moment your attention disappears, suddenly reality hits him differently. Now his mind starts racing. He starts wondering why you became distant. He starts replaying conversations in his head, trying to figure out what changed. He starts checking his phone more often, hoping to hear from you. Why? Because silence creates reflection. Silence forces emotions to surface. You see, when a woman constantly chases a man, he rarely has time to miss her. But when she steps back and focuses on herself, she creates emotional space. And emotional space is where realization happens. That's where he begins understanding how much your presence actually meant to him. A man who truly values you will feel uncomfortable when communication suddenly changes. He may pretend he's fine at first because men are proud creatures. Oh yes, men have egos. A lot of men don't. I want to admit they miss someone because they fear appearing weak. So sometimes he'll act unbothered on the outside while internally your silence is driving him crazy. He'll start wondering who has your attention now. He'll start imagining you moving on emotionally. He'll think about your smile, your conversations, your energy, and suddenly the little things he took for granted become the exact things he misses the most. See, a woman's energy has power. The way you make a man feel emotionally can become addictive to him without him even realizing it. Your support, your laughter, your attention, your peace, your warmth, those things slowly become part of his emotional routine. And once somebody becomes emotionally used to your presence, your absence creates emptiness. That's why silence can sometimes speak louder than arguments. A woman who constantly argues for attention often gets ignored because the man becomes used to emotional noise. But when she quietly withdraws her energy, the emotional atmosphere changes completely. Suddenly he feels the lack of connection. Suddenly he notices the emotional gap you left behind. Now let me explain something important. Silence is not out manipulation. A mature woman doesn't go silent just to play games. Real silence comes from self-respect. It comes from understanding you're worth enough not to beg somebody to value you. When a woman realizes she deserves consistency, respect, and effort, she stops over-explaining herself. She stops forcing conversations. She stops chasing people who already know her value. And ladies, that shift changes everything, because confidence in silence is powerful. A calm woman who knows her worth creates mystery and emotional tension naturally. When you stop reacting emotionally to every little thing, a man starts paying closer attention. Why? Because your calmness forces him to think. He starts trying to figure you out emotionally. You ever notice how some men suddenly come back after a woman stops contacting them? Oh yes, it happens all the time. Not because a woman begged harder, not because she chased more. It happens because distance gave the man clarity. Once he no longer had constant access to her energy, he finally realized how much she mattered. And see, when a man truly cares, silence affects his emotions deeply because connection has already been established. He becomes emotionally uncomfortable without your presence. He notices your absence during his day. Certain places remind him of you. Certain songs remind him of you. Even small routines start feeling incomplete because your energy became attached to parts of his emotional life. That's why emotionally attached men often reach out unexpectedly after silence. They send random messages. They suddenly ask how you're doing. They try to reconnect because internally they miss the emotional comfort you brought into their world. Now, some men react differently. Some become anxious. Some become jealous. Some become more attentive. Some even become emotional without understanding why. But one thing remains true: if your silence changes his behavior, you matter to him deeply. A woman who understands her value doesn't panic when a man pulls away. She doesn't lose herself trying to force connection. Instead, she pours energy back into her own life. She protects her peace. She focuses on herself. And ironically, that independence often makes a man respect her even more, because men admire women who carry emotional strength. A woman who can remain graceful, calm, and confident without chasing validation becomes unforgettable. She stands out because she's not operating from desperation. She's operating from self-worth. And when a man realizes your attention is no longer guaranteed, fear starts entering his heart. Fear of losing access to your energy. Fear of another man recognizing your value. Fear of becoming just another person in your past. That fear reveals emotional attachment. Because the truth is this: people fight hardest for what emotionally moves them. And when your silence starts disturbing a man's peace, affecting his thoughts, changing his mood, and making him crave your presence again, that's one of the strongest signs you become far more than just a woman he talks to. You become a woman he emotionally needs. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Harvey, let me tell you something that most men will never openly admit. A man can look strong on the outside, confident on the outside, fearless on the outside. But when he meets the right woman, all that toughness starts softening little by little. And one of the biggest signs you are his greatest weakness is when he becomes emotionally soft and vulnerable around you. Now listen carefully, because this right here is deep. Men are raised differently. From a young age, most men are taught not to cry, not to complain, not to show fear, not to express emotions openly. Society teaches men that vulnerability is weakness. So most men spend years building emotional walls around themselves. They hide pain behind silence. They hide fear behind pride. They hide love behind distance. And after a while, pretending to be emotionally tough becomes natural for them. That's why when a man starts opening up emotionally to a woman, it means something serious is happening inside him. See, men don't become vulnerable with everybody. A man may laugh with many women. He may flirt with many women. He may spend time with many women. But emotional vulnerability? Oh no. That's reserved for the woman who truly reaches his heart. When you become his weakness, he slowly starts letting his guard down around you. He begins showing parts of himself he normally keeps hidden from the world. He talks about childhood struggles. He talks about pressure. He talks about fears he never mentions to anybody else. He may even admit insecurities he's been hiding for years. Now, ladies, understand how major this is for a man. Vulnerability. Ability makes men uncomfortable because it gives somebody emotional power over them. The moment a man opens his heart, he risks getting hurt. He risks rejection. He risks disappointment. And most men hate feeling emotionally exposed. That's why a lot of men fight their feelings at first. Oh, yes, they do. They'll try to stay emotionally controlled. They'll tell themselves not to get attached. They'll try to act cool and unaffected. But when the connection becomes real, emotions begin slipping through the cracks. Suddenly, he cares about your opinion more than he expected. Suddenly, your mood affects his mood. Suddenly, your approval matters to him deeply. Why? Because emotionally, he has allowed you into a protected place inside him. You ever notice how a man starts acting softer around the woman he truly loves? His voice changes. His patience increases. His attention becomes different. A man who is rough with the world often becomes gentle with the woman who touches his soul. That's emotional softness. And let me tell you something beautiful about men. A man may never say I'm vulnerable out loud, but his actions reveal it. When he starts checking if you got home safely, that's vulnerability. When he worries about losing you, that's vulnerability. When he remembers little details about your life, that's vulnerability. When your sadness affects him emotionally, that's vulnerability. See, love changes people. Real connection softens pride. A man who truly cares about you cannot remain emotionally cold forever because attachment naturally creates emotional openness. Now, sometimes this softness scares men. Oh, yes. Some men pull away after becoming emotionally attached because vulnerability feels unfamiliar to them. One minute he's opening up, communicating, becoming emotionally available, then suddenly he becomes distant. A lot of women get confused by that. But many times it happens because the emotions became too real for him. See, when a man realizes you have the ability to hurt him emotionally, fear enters the picture. Fear of rejection, fear of heartbreak, fear of not being enough. Men feel these emotions too, even if they don't talk about them openly. That's why emotionally attached men sometimes become extra sensitive to your actions. A simple change in your tone can affect him deeply. A little distance from you can make him anxious. Your silence can disturb his peace. Why? Because emotionally invested people become vulnerable to the energy of the person they love. And ladies, let me tell you another truth. A man becomes emotionally soft with the woman who gives him emotional safety. A man cannot fully open up where he feels judged, criticized, or emotionally unsafe. But when a woman listens without attacking him, supports without controlling him, she shows him that he is not alone and understands without constantly tearing him down. He begins trusting her emotionally. Trust is everything to a man. Once a man trusts you emotionally, he starts showing his authentic self. The mask slowly comes off. The ego slowly relaxes. He no longer feels like he has to pretend around you. And that level of emotional comfort is rare for men because most men spend their lives feeling pressured to always appear strong. That's why a peaceful woman becomes unforgettable. Peace gives a man room to breathe emotionally. Peace allows him to rest mentally. Peace makes him feel accepted. And when a man finds emotional peace with a woman, he becomes deeply attached to her presence. You'll notice he starts wanting your advice. He starts caring about what you think. He starts including you in his future plans naturally. Why? Because emotionally soft men begin seeing the woman they love as part of their emotional foundation. And let me tell you something else. A vulnerable man is not a weak man. In fact, vulnerability takes courage. It takes strength for a man to expose his emotions honestly. It takes strength for him to admit fears, dreams, insecurities, and pain. That's why when a man becomes emotionally open with you, you should never take it lightly. A man's vulnerability is one of the most honest gifts he can give because men do not easily expose their emotional world. And see, the woman who becomes his weakness is usually the woman who makes him feel emotionally understood, not perfect, not controlled, understood. When a man feels understood, he relaxes emotionally. He stops fighting connection. He starts craving your presence because around you, he doesn't have to perform constantly. Around you, he can simply be himself. And ladies, that emotional comfort becomes addictive to a man. In a world where he constantly feels pressure to compete, provide, lead, and survive, the woman who brings him emotional peace becomes priceless. That's why he becomes so soft. Round you, that's why his walls begin falling down. That's why his heart slowly opens even if he never planned for it to happen. Because once a woman touches a man emotionally in a deep and genuine way, she stops being just another woman in his life. She becomes the woman who holds the power to calm his mind, touch his soul, and expose the vulnerable side he hides from everybody else, ladies and gentlemen. Steve Harvey, let me tell you something about men that a lot of women don't fully understand. A man only fears losing what he truly values. Read that again in your spirit. A man only fears losing what he truly values. And one of the strongest signs you are his biggest weakness is when he becomes afraid of losing your attention, your presence, your energy, and your love. Now, see, in the beginning of many relationships, men often move with confidence, sometimes even too much confidence. A man may think she likes me, she'll always be here, so he gets comfortable. He starts assuming your love is guaranteed. He assumes your attention will always be available no matter how little effort he gives. And ladies, that's when many women make the mistake of overgiving while receiving, very little in return. But something changes the moment a man realizes your attention is no longer guaranteed. Oh yes, the moment he notices you pulling your energy back, the moment he notices you focusing on yourself, the moment he notices you're no longer chasing him the same way, suddenly his emotional world shifts. Why? because now he feels the possibility of losing access to you. And once that fear enters a man's mind, his behavior starts changing. See, men are naturally competitive creatures. Men pursue what feels valuable, rare, and difficult to replace. That's why confidence is powerful. A woman who knows her worth creates emotional tension in a man because deep down he understands she has options. He understands other people can see her value too. And that realization awakens fear inside him. Now understand this carefully. Fear of losing you is not always loud. Some men won't openly admit it. Some men hide it behind pride. Some men become quiet. Some become extra attentive. Some suddenly start texting more. Some start asking where you are, what you're doing, and who you're around. But underneath all those actions is one emotional truth he's scared of losing his: place in your life. And ladies, let me tell you something important. A woman becomes unforgettable when she stops making a man the center of her entire world. The moment a woman starts pouring energy back into herself, her confidence rises naturally. She becomes more attractive emotionally because she no longer moves from desperation. She moves from self-worth.